So I want you to mentally walk back to just the first few minutes of your day today.
Oh boy, testing the memory right out of the gate.
Right, exactly. But specifically, I want you to think about the physical sensation of, like, eating your breakfast.
Okay,
Maybe
yeah.
you felt, the crunch of the toast or the warmth of the coffee mug in your hands,
Hmm.
and then that sudden rush of caffeine hitting your bloodstream.
Oh, I definitely felt the caffeine.
We all do, right?
Yeah.
We are remarkably conscious of that physical process. You intuitively calculate what that food is going to do to you.
Right. A protein shake builds you up, and a box of powdered donuts will probably leave you crashing by noon.
Exactly. But I want you to ask yourself a slightly different question. Before you even took that first bite of food, what was the very first piece of information you fed your mind this morning?
Oof. Yeah, the contrast there is staggering when you actually map it out.
It really is.
I mean, most of us wouldn't dream of drinking contaminated water right out of a swamp, right?
Definitely not.
Yet we reach for our phones before our eyes are even fully adjusted to the light. And we just instantly flood our nervous system with, panic-inducing headlines, outrage, just chaos.
Guilty as charged, honestly. First thing I do is check my notifications.
We all do it. We treat information as if it's weightless, as if it has no biological consequence at all. But every single thing you see, hear, and feel, it carries a metabolic cost. It is the literal fuel for your cognitive architecture.
Which brings us to the core mission of today's deep dive. We're looking at a really fascinating excerpt from episode 38 of a program called Mission 180,
Yes, great source material.
and they explore this concept they call sensory hygiene, basically the art of mental input control.
I love that phrase, sensory hygiene.
Right, the goal here is to completely rethink how our senses act as the doorway to our minds, and most importantly, how we can stop our internal systems from suffering this catastrophic failure due to information overload.
Yeah, because we talk about dental hygiene, right? Brushing our teeth. Or physical hygiene, taking a shower to wash off the dirt of the day.
Exactly.
But we walk around with years of accumulated mental grime, mostly because we just let whatever wants to come into our brain stroll right through the front door.
We really do. We just leave the door wide open.
We operate under this really dangerous assumption that our minds are infinite vacuums. But the reality is we are living in an era where the sheer volume of data we're exposed to is historically unprecedented.
Like beyond anything our ancestors dealt with.
Way beyond. Our biological hardware, the actual gray matter in our skulls, it was not designed for this environment. It's being pushed far, far beyond its evolutionary limits.
Yeah.
So understanding the mechanics of how the brain filters the world, it isn't just a productivity hack. It's a fundamental requirement for maintaining your cognitive health. And honestly, your baseline sanity.
Yeah, to really grasp the mechanics of this, the source material introduces a deeply relatable case study. We follow this guy named Seth Karodimal.
Oh, Seth. Poor Seth.
Right, poor Seth. He essentially serves as the avatar for modern everyday suffering. Seth operates with absolute zero sensory hygiene. His daily routine is just a relentless barrage. He wakes up to a blaring alarm, immediately starts scrolling through a feed of negative news.
Sounds familiar.
Doesn't it? Then he commutes while listening to chaotic audio and works in an environment that is just saturated with notifications and hyperstimulating media.
From the moment he opens his eyes to the moment he collapses into bed, it is just a fire hose of unfiltered input.
It's like, okay, think of it like a car engine running on completely contaminated fuel. Eventually, the engine is either going to stall or it's just going to burn out entirely.
And the physical and psychological toll of that specific routine is profound.
I bet.
By constantly bombarding his visual and auditory pathways with high-intensity, high-stress input, Seth forces his autonomic nervous system into a chronic state of hyperstimulation.
So his body thinks it's under attack.
Essentially, yes. He is living in a perpetual fight-or-flight response. His system never gets the opportunity to return to a baseline state of rest.
The text describes the result of this as severe irritability and heavy mental fatigue. But I want to pause and explore the mechanics of that fatigue for a second.
Sure.
Because I get that staying informed is important, right? We're constantly told we need to read widely, expose ourselves to new ideas.
Right, you want to be a good citizen.
Exactly. But looking at Seth, at what point does staying informed cross the line into this toxic state? Is his exhaustion coming specifically from the emotional weight of the negative news he's reading? Or is it the format itself, like the bright screens, the infinite scroll, the rapid-fire jump cuts?
That is the million-dollar question, and really it's the collision of the two.
Okay, how so?
Well, we have to look at how the human nervous system evolved to understand why Seth's brain is failing. Our nervous system is incredibly old hardware.
Right.
For hundreds of thousands of years, a sudden bright flash of light, a loud sharp noise, or a rapid movement in our peripheral vision meant one thing.
Danger.
Exactly. An immediate threat to our physical survival. It meant a predator.
Wow. Okay.
So when Seth is staring at a screen that is engineered to deliver rapid-fire cuts, flashing colors, sudden auditory pings, his lower brain is constantly triggering an orienting reflex.
Oh, man. So it's releasing what, adrenaline?
Adrenaline and cortisol, microdoses of it, just preparing him to run or fight.
Wait, so his biology is reacting to a social media notification the exact same way it would react to a tiger rustling in the bushes.
Precisely.
That is wild.
And that is just the stimulation aspect. That's what revs the engine. But
Yeah.
then you layer on the negativity of the content itself.
The actual news he's reading.
Right, the bad news, the outrage, the global crises. Seth is absorbing complex existential threats while his body is primed for a physical fight.
Which he can't actually fight. You can't punch a news article.
Exactly. The brain simply cannot process that paradox efficiently. It spends massive amounts of metabolic energy trying to resolve a threat that doesn't physically exist in the room with him.
Oh.
That combination, the biological hijacking of the format plus the psychological weight of the content, that is what creates that profound, heavy mental fatigue. He's exhausted because his brain is fighting a phantom war all day long.
That reframes the entire idea of exhaustion for me. It's not that
Really?
we're doing too much physical work, you know.
Yeah.
We're burning our energy reserves trying to process invisible threats.
That's exactly it.
And this brings us to the core scientific law introduced in the material, which explains exactly how this breakdown happens on a neurological level. They call it sensory gating.
Sensory gating, yes. This is the biological reality of how you experience reality itself.
Okay, break that down for us.
To put it in perspective, the human brain processes millions of sensory signals every single second.
Wait, millions of signals a second.
Millions every single second.
I mean, even knowing the brain is this massive supercomputer, wrapping your head around that scale of data processing is difficult.
Yeah.
What exactly constitutes a signal in this context?
Well, it's literally everything your central nervous system detects. Right now, your brain is processing the exact temperature of the air hitting your face.
Okay.
It is monitoring the pressure of the chair against your back. It's registering the ambient hum of the refrigerator in the other room, the subtle shifts in the light coming through the window.
Even the feeling of your clothes against your skin.
Exactly. And the rhythm of your own breathing. If you were consciously aware of all of this data at once, you would go instantly mad.
Which means the brain is doing an unbelievable amount of heavy lifting entirely behind the
Huge
scenes.
amounts.
But here's where I get tripped up.
Right.
If the brain is powerful enough to handle millions of data points every single second flawlessly, without us even realizing it,
Right.
why does an hour of doom scrolling on a smartphone cause a catastrophic crash?
That's a great point.
Right. If it has that much raw processing horsepower, a few hundred tweets or news articles should be a drop in the bucket. Why does this specific input break a supercomputer?
Because the brain's true power isn't in its storage capacity, it's in its filtration mechanism.
Oh, yeah.
That is what sensory gating is. It's an automatic neurological filter that suppresses redundant or irrelevant stimuli. It determines what gets elevated to your conscious awareness and what gets ignored.
So it blocks out the fridge humming so I can actually focus on what you're saying.
Exactly. The system is perfectly designed to filter out that background noise. But when you introduce the kind of input Seth consumes, highly emotionally charged, hyper-stimulating negative data, you bypass the filter entirely.
Because the brain categorizes it as a threat. And threats always get priority access.
Bingo. The sensory gating system cannot suppress a threat. When you flood your visual and auditory channels with alarming news and chaotic media, the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, flags every single one of those inputs as critical for survival.
Wow, so the filter doesn't break because it runs out of space.
Right, it breaks because it is overwhelmed by false alarms. Processing garbage requires a massive cognitive load. And when the gating mechanism fails from exhaustion, your ability to focus, to regulate your emotions, to think clearly, it completely collapses. You're left entirely exposed to the noise.
You know what that makes me think of? It makes me think of an autoimmune response.
Oh, that's an interesting analogy. How so?
Well, the immune system is this incredibly complex, powerful defense mechanism designed to keep you healthy.
Right.
But In an autoimmune crisis, the system gets confused. It starts overreacting to harmless things, or it even starts attacking the body's own healthy tissue. By flooding our senses with digital chaos, we are essentially inducing a cognitive autoimmune response.
Yes.
The brain starts attacking its own energy reserves, trying to neutralize a barrage of meaningless digital noise.
That is a much more accurate biological model, actually. Seth's cognitive fatigue is the direct result of an inflamed, overactive threat response system that has completely depleted his mental energy.
So if Seth represents the system in total failure, the obvious question becomes, well, how do we heal the inflammation? How do we rebuild that sensory gating mechanism?
Right, what's the cure?
Exactly. And the Mission 180 material introduces a fascinating counterexample to Seth, a character named Master Dinanath.
Yes, Master Dinanath. If Seth is the victim of sensory overload, Dinanath is the architect of a highly optimized internal environment. He is described in the material as a sensory gatekeeper.
A sensory gatekeeper.
Yeah, he doesn't just passively hope his brain will filter out the bad stuff. He actively engineers his environment to protect his cognitive load.
And the methodology they describe for him is intense. Like, his primary criteria for allowing information into his mind is remarkably strict.
Very strict.
He only looks at or listens to things that provide direction to his life's mission. If an input doesn't serve a specific meaningful purpose, it just doesn't get past the gate.
It's all about intentionality. He maintains a deliberate sensory zone, keeping himself physically and digitally insulated from unnecessary noise.
I love the phrase sensory gatekeeper. It makes me think of a really strict bouncer at an exclusive nightclub.
Huh. Yeah, checking IDs at the door of your brain.
Right. And you're just pointing out to the listener how liberating it is that this isn't about punishing yourself. It's treating your mental capacity as a VIP area that requires a velvet rope.
It requires extreme intentionality. Dinanath recognizes that his attention is a finite, highly valuable resource.
It really is.
By rigorously controlling his environment, maybe putting his phone in another room, curating his digital feeds to only show relevant information, or even just seeking out physical silence, he drastically reduces the amount of work his sensory gating system has to do.
Which means his neurological filter is well rested.
Highly efficient and well-rested because it isn't constantly battling an onslaught of garbage.
I can hear people listening to this and immediately throwing up a red flag, though.
Why is that?
Because only consuming things that serve your life's mission, it can sound a lot like willful ignorance, right?
I see what you mean.
We live in a really complex society. We're taught that being a responsible citizen means keeping up with the news, understanding global conflicts, being aware of the struggles of others.
Right.
If we all retreat into our own curated sensory zones and just block out anything that isn't directly related to our personal goals, don't we lose our empathy? How do we balance being responsible, engaged human beings with protecting our sensory gates?
That is a crucial tension to address. But the philosophy here isn't advocating for sticking your head in the sand.
Okay.
It's about recognizing the critical difference between actionable awareness and toxic consumption. True empathy and responsible citizenship require energy.
That's a good point.
If your nervous system is collapsed from endless doom scrolling, you aren't actually helping anyone. You are just another exhausted, irritable person adding to the collective anxiety.
Like the old saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly, you literally can't. Dinanath's approach is about capacity allocation. By filtering out the noise, the sensationalism, the algorithmic outrage, he preserves his mental energy.
So when he does engage, he's actually effective.
Exactly. When he chooses to engage with a global issue or a complex problem, he brings a rested, focused, and capable mind to it. Exercising sensory restraint isn't about avoiding reality. It's about ensuring you have the cognitive bandwidth to actually deal with reality effectively.
And the material makes a really strong point to emphasize that this kind of restraint shouldn't feel like self-torture.
No, not at all.
It isn't about ascetic deprivation. It's not locking yourself in an empty, silent room and staring at a wall for the rest of your life.
Which is how a lot of people initially interpret the idea of input control. They think of it as a punishment.
Right, like being grounded.
Yeah, but it's actually the ultimate form of self-preservation. Think of Dinanath's sensory zone not as a prison cell, but as a greenhouse.
A greenhouse, I like that.
All right. A greenhouse is a highly controlled environment. You restrict the wind, you control the temperature, and you filter the light.
Right.
But you do this not to punish the plants inside. You do it to create the exact conditions necessary for them to thrive and grow to their full potential. Dinanath is simply building a greenhouse for his mind.
I absolutely love that imagery. You are deliberately keeping the frost and the pests out so that your actual life's mission can take root.
Exactly.
If you look at Seth and Dinanath side by side, you are looking at two human beings with the exact same biological hardware. They both have brains processing millions of signals a second.
Yep, same hardware.
But Seth has abdicated his role as the architect. He's living in an open field, letting every storm and stray animal trample his attention. While Dinanath has built the walls, calibrated the temperature, and cultivated a sanctuary.
And the stakes of which environment you choose to build are incredibly high. The source material hints at this broader implication toward the end.
Oh yeah, the prana concept.
Yes. They present sensory hygiene not just as a tool for better focus, but as the absolute prerequisite for conserving what they call prana energy.
Prana energy. In many Eastern traditions, that translates directly to life force, right? It's the vital energy that animates you.
Yes. It is the core vitality that drives your physical and mental existence.
Wow.
By introducing prana, the text elevates sensory hygiene from just a simple light hack to a profound physiological imperative.
It makes it a matter of survival almost.
They're essentially arguing that your vital life force cannot be sustained, let alone cultivated, if your sensory gates are constantly being breached by low-quality, high-stress input.
That makes so much sense.
Every time your amygdala fires over a meaningless social media argument, a fraction of your life force is burned away.
It completely reframes every single interaction we have with our devices in our environment.
It really does.
It's not just about avoiding a headache at the end of the day. It's about recognizing that your attention is literally your life force being converted into action.
Beautifully put.
Where you point your eyes and what you put in your ears dictates the actual quality of your existence. I mean,
Hello?
we started this whole deep dive by talking about the food you ate for breakfast.
Right, the powdered donuts versus the protein shake.
Exactly. You wouldn't scrape your meal out of a dumpster because you respect your physical body.
And yet, millions of people wake up every single day and immediately start consuming the digital equivalent of a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why they feel mentally poisoned by noon. The input entirely dictates the output. You cannot achieve a high vitality life on a low quality mental diet.
You really can't. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Mission 180, we want to leave you with a direct challenge, a way to actually pressure test this in your own life today.
I love a good challenge.
I want you to perform a ruthless audit of your own mental doorway. Look at your screen time over the last 24 hours. Look at the specific apps that are allowed to send push notifications to your phone.
Oh, that's a big one.
Look at the audio you listen to during your commute and the background noise you tolerate in your workspace. What kind of data is sneaking past your gatekeeper right now?
Without an ID, right?
Exactly, no VIP pass.
Yeah.
Are the things flowing through your visual and auditory channels actively building the greenhouse you need to execute your life's mission? Or are they just triggering false alarms in your nervous system, overwhelming your sensory gating, and quietly draining away your vital energy?
That's a heavy question.
It is, but it's important. You have the biological hardware of a supercomputer, but you are the one writing the code. You get to decide what crosses the threshold. It might be time to start guarding the gate,